So if you've seen videos of the bunker, we've got a project today. This is the new engine terminal now loaded up with buildings from the suburb that we've called LaGrange and whatever else in the past. But we're trying to model a West Chicago suburb like the one like LaGrange where that station is. And we've found that with the layout design as it is, the double track main line, this is a 3-foot wide section of benchwork, and the layout is 3 feet wide all the way around. The problem is when we design the layout, when you do it in a track plan in software, things kind of change once you actually build it, and we didn't really know how to visualize this part of the layout. The trackage was designed and everything before we figured out scenery, and when this was finally built, the tracks were here, and we put buildings on both sides of the tracks, not really realizing there wasn't enough space on the far side of the tracks to really model what we'd normally see in a suburb, which is a street, then sidewalks, then storefronts. And what we did, we tried to put buildings here and then on the other side of the tracks, and then there was all this empty space. Tried to do a street here. Most of this stuff was sort of temporary, but we've never been able to get the scene right despite changing buildings, adding buildings, rearranging them. So what we decided to do is pull the double track 10 inches towards the front of the benchwork. And that means pulling all of the scenery. Now, most of this stuff is, I would say, temporary or semi-temporary. And you've seen shots from this corner where there's buildings here. I took them off, and this is actually movable. This is a piece of thick plastic scenery's been put on top of it, so this whole thing can be moved without destroying it. And unfortunately, some of this ballast is glued down. We're gonna have to get a scraper underneath the roadbed and shorten these sidings a little bit, like 10 inches, and remove a section of 10 inches of track here, and then 10 inches of track here, 10 inches here, and pull the entire thing this way, which it'll bring the entire main line in 10 inches and give us enough space for a street, then a little grass going to up like a fence to the double track, and then a nice street, and then storefronts. So it'll look like a real suburb, and the scenery problem will be solved. We just couldn't figure out how to get it right without making this change, and I decided we should do it. We talked to the guys, and they thought it made sense. Over here, we just have to pull out. There are already 2 10-inch sections of Atlas track. Should be able to pull that out and move this. Most of this ballast isn't glued, so we just have to vacuum it up, and we'll be able to recycle it and use it again, so that's good. And there are track screws every so often holding down the track and road beds, so we should be able to reuse everything. And there are only a few wires here. One thing I would recommend that we've learned that's been helpful is the track feeders they're just wires that are soldered to rail joiners rather than soldered to the rail, which means it's not hard to take the rail joiners off and then reconnect them later once we move the track in and drill new holes for, I don't know, we'll be drilling them like here for the feeders. So we might need to do new feeders because the rail joiners are notorious for getting weak when you use them again, but we'll give it a try. But the good news is there's only one set of feeders for this whole stretch of track on both of these. You can see the wires here. And then there's a pair of feeders for each of those sidings. So this whole thing's gonna get pulled in 10 inches, which then gives us some space to the back wall to put up backdrops and stuff blocking this window. So there's a number of reasons why this is worth doing. And one reason why I advise not to do permanent scenery until you really get settled in with what you want, because then changing things becomes a nightmare. So a lot of these things are movable or removable. Like this is attached presently, this whole piece, but all of this is built on a thin sheet of plastic. and it can be unscrewed and lifted off of here in one piece without damaging it. And those are pieces of foam. I think it's 2 pieces. That building's on one, this is one. And in photos and video, you really don't notice the gap or anything, but they're removable too in case we change our mind later and want to put something else back there. So that's the mindset at this point, is to keep the scenery sort of semi-portable rather than having everything permanent.